morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to our little mini masterclass where we are exploring the contents of our brand new free ebook that we have for you here in our Quantum Human Design group. The name of the ebook is Mastering Life's Transition, A Guide to Conscious Growth and Coaching. You can find the information that you need to download the ebook if you haven't done it yet, or the workbook, pinned to the top of this page. So go to the top of the page, you'll see it says Mastering Life's Transition. It'll say it's under the featured tab, and we'll post the link for that below for you as well. So give me just a second to kind of get us oriented here. All right. So good morning. Good morning officially. It is Friday. It has been another week of very interesting celestial weather right here in the world, on the planet. And we've been deep in a conversation about transformation and change. And last week, just to kind of bring you up to speed, last week we talked about disruption. What happens when we go through a cycle or a season when it feels like the rug gets pulled out from under us, and that can look like job loss or a health crisis or a relationship challenge, or anything that really causes you to have to redefine the story you tell yourself and the world about who you are and how you are. And last week we talked about why disruption is actually not because you made a mistake or you screwed up or there's something wrong with you, but that disruption is merely a symptom of your soul calling you forward into a new season, into a cycle of growth, and that disruptive cycles are normal. You can't experience life without going through a disruptive cycle. And I also want to just add, because sometimes when we talk about disruption, we always make it negative, right? I also really want to just add and remind us that disruption can also be good, right? It can be good events can disrupt us. But we also know that those good events can also be stressful. My oldest daughter just gave birth 4 months ago almost to my littlest, newest grandbaby, a granddaughter. And, right now they have 3 small children, 5 and under, and their life is pretty disrupted, but it's not bad, right? It's not a bad thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's just hard, right? And of course, part of what's happening is they're redefining who they are as a family. So disruption gives us an opportunity to redefine our story. Now, disruption, and this is in the workbook in detail. So again, if you go up to the top under the featured section of the Quantum Human Design Facebook page, or we'll post the link below as well. There's a link. Teresa just posted the link below. There's a link to the workbook. I'm walking through some of the information in the workbook. In the workbook, I invited you last week to go through pages 1 through 9. And part of what I had you do is to just look at an assessment of where you are right now. Explore the parts of your life right now and really look at, are there parts of your life right now that feel disrupted? And if they are, that's awesome. It's hard. I'm not going to say it's easy. It can be hard. Even if it's good, it's hard, right? Having a baby is hard. That first year of marriage can be hard, right? Those changes can be challenging, but we need to be challenged as part of growth, even though we don't always like it. So once we go through a cycle or a season of disruption, it spits us out into the second phase of transformation. That second phase of transformation is called liminality. And I like to call it the void because that's way easier to say, right? And the void cycle is a cycle or a season when you're kind of standing in an unknown zone, right? And that unknown zone is, you're sort of sitting in this unknown zone, and you've gone through the grief and the acute phase of disruption. And now you're sort of sitting in this unknown zone, and it's very interesting, right? Because you can't go back to how things used to be, and you're not quite ready to go forward yet. And you're vulnerable in that season. You're very vulnerable in that season, because when you're in that season, it's easy to want to go back to how things used to be, right? If we don't do our work, our inner work, or if we come up against that inner work and it's either feels too hard, or I will just add, it also can feel like it's just not time yet. You might not be ready yet, and that's okay. Like, you might not be ready yet to make that radical transformation. And I think sometimes we judge ourselves about that, but it's sometimes that work is really hard. And there may be other factors going on in your life that might make it very difficult to do that work. I'll share with you all that, when I first got divorced in my early 30s, I got divorced. My first husband was a very, very burned out, no motors projector. We had 4 kids, 2 generators, 2 manifesting generators. I'm a manifesting generator. I mean, we just, as a family, we just burned this poor guy out, right? And when we got divorced, he was not able to work. He could not pay child support. He couldn't really be present as a parent at that time. And he went home to live with his mom all the way on the other side of the country, which left me with, 4 kids, full-time financial support, full-time care. And, it really was challenging, on many, many levels. And even though I kind of had a sense of, this is how I'd like to change, these are the changes that I'd like to make, I also had, very significant financial considerations to look at. And it wasn't so easy for me to do all the work that I needed to do, all the changing that I needed to do at that time, because I had to instantly go into full-on survival mode with money. And so, the work that I I needed to do, it took me 10 years to really get to a different place. But that work, I couldn't do that at that time. I had to dig in immediately and build my business and get my business going and figure out how I was going to manage time and money and being able to drive kids after school to things and still be able to feed them and put dinner on the table and keep a roof over our heads. And that is normal for many of us, that sometimes we go through seasons of disruption. We're not necessarily completely capable or in a place where we can do a radical reset. There may be other people involved, other factors involved. And if that's the case, be gentle with yourself. Be aware of where you are. And certainly let us not point our finger at other people, which sometimes we do when we watch people go back into similar situations that they were in before, right? That sometimes that's happening because they're not ready yet, and it's okay. Eventually, the universe is so generous, and our life trajectory is so much designed to support our growth. Eventually, life will keep being disrupted and keep being disrupted enough times to where you reach critical mass on, okay, I'm ready now to do those changes, hopefully, right? So we go into this second season, liminality, or the void, and we're sitting in this space, this in-between space, right? And Hannah wrote about this earlier this week. You should go look at what Hannah posted. When we sit in this space, it's kind of a pregnant space, right? It's sort of like you're gestating something, but oftentimes it feels really murky and really unknown, and you don't quite know where you're going. And it's tempting because I think collectively, most of us as human beings are really afraid of the unknown. We don't like the unknown. We like to have answers. We like to have it all sewn up and figured out. Unless you're a third line profile, maybe you're a little bit more into the adventure than the rest of us. But, we like to have a plan. And we don't necessarily have a plan in this season. And I want to unpack today a little bit about what do you do if you're sitting in the void. So let's start talking first about what are some of the symptoms of being in a void. When you're in a void, probably the most common thing you'll hear yourself say to yourself is, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want. When I'm coaching people, I always know instantly where they are in their cycle of transformation when they start telling me, I don't know what I want. And it can feel like, I don't know what I want. So how do I orient myself in my life towards something different, something better? Which is why when we're in the void, we're so vulnerable to going back. Because if we don't know what we want, if we don't know, if you think of your life as a map and you're in point A and point A just blew up and you need to get to point B, if you don't have a point B, it's very difficult to point yourself in any particular direction where you are consciously then steering what's next in your life. You're not able to consciously steer yourself towards anything because you're sitting there in a void without a point B on your map. So I wanted to start today with something that's been in my head a lot lately, which is it's an expression from my grandmother. And I think I shared this a couple of weeks ago, but my grandmother used to say, you can't pray for flowers and be angry when it rains, right? You can't pray for flowers and be angry when it rains, right? And I think it's such a really powerful metaphor to help us explore how do we navigate the void? Because a lot of times what happens is we pray for flowers, right? We say, I want a better job. I want to attract my soulmate, or I want my relationship to be a soulmate partnership. I want to achieve better health habits, better habits in general in my life. I want spiritual growth. That's a big one, right? You know, we pray for things and then our life falls apart. And that falling apart part is the part that freaks us out, right? It's the rain. We freak out because of the rain. And we forget that sometimes it has to fall apart because that's the matrix that we're creating from within isn't the right matrix to support the new prayer that we have, right? And so we have to dismantle all the junk, all the extra, all the stuff that doesn't fit anymore, and it pushes us out into the void where, again, it's probably raining. And part of why we get so frustrated with the rain is, well, it's been raining here a lot in Wisconsin lately, and probably it's raining where you are here, you know, maybe where you are as well. It's, you know, April showers, right? Bring May flowers. Well, we had showers starting in March. It's still raining. You know, that rain, unless you're the kind of person that like gets on rain pants and a rain jacket and likes to go out in your rain boots and splash around in the puddles, you know, and you probably live in the Pacific Northwest, first of all, and secondly, you know, unless you're that kind of a person, rain sort of makes you have to stay inside, right? And maybe curl up on the couch if you're lucky and read a book, or kind of, it sort of insists that we stop doing, right? We stop doing. And when we stop doing, we don't realize that the not doing is actually part of the doing of the void, okay? So when we talk about the void, we have to talk about what's going on in that rain season, that rainy season. It has been my experience as a coach now for more than 25 years that the single biggest thing that's happening when we're in the void and it feels like it's raining and we can't do anything, that the single biggest thing that's really happening is we are receiving a call to heal. We have received from the universe what I call a cosmic pause, right? We get a cosmic pause. It's raining outside metaphorically. We're inside. We can't do anything. And that's actually a blessing. It's actually a gift because most of us tend to go through seasons and cycles of disruption when we burn out. Now, burnout for open sacral types, that's our initiators, orchestrators, projectors, or manifestor, projector, reflector. Usually that burnout is pretty significant physically, right? You know, it is not uncommon if you are an open sacral type, manifestor, projector, reflector, if you go through a season or a cycle or a disruptive event that is a result of burnout, it's going to impact you deeply and physically. You're going to be on the couch, unable to get up, right? Watching, I don't know, if you're watching YouTube videos or you're watching reels and just sort of stuck in, you know, repeat, rest, inaction. We refer to that as inaction. So can we start first by saying that the inaction of resting because you're healing is actually action. That's actually the most important thing you can do to reset your life. Now, for the generator types, sometimes that burnout shows up differently. And oftentimes for the generator types, if you're burned out, that burnout looks like numbness. It looks like settling for mediocrity. It looks like being like, You have an kind of a life, right? You're going through the motions, but your sacral's not turned on, right? Your life force is not oozing out of you dynamically. You're blah. You're living life at 50%. You've caved, you've settled, you're into the mediocrity. You're probably numbing yourself out with either food or media or something that keeps you disassociated from the pain of feeling trapped or being in a cycle or a season where it feels like you have no other options but to just settle for what's showing up. That's how burnout looks for the generator types. And that can also create disruption, because usually your prayer is for passion, right? You pray for passion when you're a generator type. When you're sitting in the void and nothing's happening, you're looking out the window, and metaphorically it just keeps raining and raining and raining and raining, and you're waiting for the great flood, right? That first thing you have to really check in is say, do I have the energy for the expansion that I'm wanting? Do I have the energy to be able to embrace the answer to my prayer if it showed up on my doorstep? And a lot of times, if you've disrupted your life because of burnout, you're not ready for the prayer to show up. You're not ready for the prayer to show up because you're tired, you're exhausted, you're depleted. You need to heal. And really, what's so powerful about traditional human design especially is that part of what we're healing when we follow strategy and authority and rest, let's really never eliminate rest from the action phase of the void. You have to heal, and resting is part of healing. The other thing that's happening in that rest season, especially if you know human design, is you're getting reacquainted with the wisdom that lives in your body. You're getting reacquainted with the wisdom that lives in your body. Because what happens a lot of times is we check out, right? When we hate our jobs, we hate our lives, our relationship's not working, we feel like it's not safe or okay for us to be who we are or how we are, or we've followed all the rules that society and our families have dictated to us that we need to follow in order to be successful, valued, etc. We can't be inauthentic for very, very long without having to numb out our body, right? And we learn at a very young age. When you're 5 years old and you're sitting in a classroom all day long and it's springtime and you're looking out the window and you can see the sun shining and you can see the swings blowing in the breeze, and you're thinking, I want to go outside and play, which is really probably what you should be doing. And your teacher's saying, hey, Johnny, pay attention. What is 1 + 1, right? And you have to go, I'm in school. I got to focus forward. The only way you can do that is to numb yourself out. Your soul wants to go play on the swing. Your being wants to be out there doing the things that your 5-year-old self wants you to do, or your 6-year-old self wants you to do. And your teacher and society and the rules and institutions are saying, nope, you got to sit down, get in your chair, focus forward, do your math, or whatever, right? And as we start to become conditioned by our world, the only way we can sometimes survive without going completely cuckoo is to numb ourselves out, which is why oftentimes disruption can be a physical event, a health crisis, because the body at a certain point says, hey, we can't continue like this anymore. You can shut me down all you want, but I have really important information for you and you're not listening. So I'm gonna make you go to the couch. I'm gonna make you lie down here and not be able to move until you get the message that I'm sending you. And the message that I'm sending you is your life is not working for you, sweetheart. You are not doing what you came here to do. You are not being who you came here to be. So I'm grounding you. I'm not participating in this story anymore. So we think, okay, it's terrible. I have this illness or whatever. And it's not fun. I'm not saying that it's great that you're sick. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, though, that the body eventually will communicate with us, or our life will communicate with us. And oftentimes when we're in the void, before we get clarity about where we're headed next, we have to rest. We have to heal. Because if we don't rest and if we don't heal, we're not going to be available for the next opportunity, for the next cycle of growth and expansion. And if we don't do that work, it also leaves us vulnerable to going back to the old story, because it's too hard to rest and I don't know why, but it's true. We think resting is hard. Like the amount of emotional labor that goes into giving ourselves permission to rest. Why is that so hard? Why is our conditioning around work and value so insidious that we can't even give ourselves permission to rest? Think about that. That's the thing we need to undo. One of the many things we need to undo, right? The second thing, this is just my 2 considerations for you this week. First consideration, if you're in the void, do you need to rest and heal? That's the first consideration. The second consideration is, let's go back and let's review the word action. And as I said, resting is an action. And don't discount it that because you're not doing anything, you are resting. That is what you're doing. Resting is a verb. So it's a doing word, right? You're doing resting, right? But oftentimes what we also neglect is that sometimes action is about orchestrating and steering and organizing and building and creating the energy of momentum. And what that looks like is it means you get your identity, the story of who you are, in order. And that includes restoring to yourself your inner sense of lovability, your inner sense of self-worth, making sure that your faith muscle is strong, that you are willing to take bold steps towards something that is brand new and potentially unseen yet, because it'll become seen eventually if you have the faith, right? But you have to build up the emotional energy and the reserves to be able to have the faith and the vision to build towards what's next. So taking care of your mindset, again, doing the healing work of healing your lovability and your self-worth, and learning how to cultivate faith, and going on an exploration. And that's not necessarily leaving the couch in some cases. It means you're really getting clear about the question, what do I want? And that's a hard question to answer sometimes. And so sometimes that means going back to, okay, well, what do I don't want? And recognizing that sometimes to sort of start steering ourselves through the void towards point B on the map, we have to go, okay, I know what I don't want. I'm going to assume that if I don't want this job, I don't want this work, I don't want what's happening in my partnership, I don't want what's happening with my body, that we can at least begin to start cultivating the idea of what we do want by looking at what's the opposite of what we don't want. It is very common, it's probably, as I said, is the most common symptom that I see with my clients when they say, I don't know what I want. I know, automatically, you're in the void. You're in the void. You've probably had some event or maybe some repeated event that's disrupted your life. You know you don't want to go back. You don't want what you had, but you don't know what you do want moving forward. And you're sitting in this space where you don't know what you want. So number one, always check in and ask, do I need to rest and heal? I'll wait for that to go away. And number two, what do I need to do to start clarifying what I do want? And that requires sometimes taking an inventory of your life and really looking at, where am I now? What do I not like about where I am now? What would be the opposite of that? Because that's a good place to start exploring, well, what's the opposite of that? Is that what I want? And to really start looking at every area of your life and thinking about, if I'm going to use this time as a reset for myself and reorient myself towards a direction that is more aligned with my authentic self and my passion and my power and my gifts and my strengths and my dreams, what is that going to look like? That's the work of the void. And it's not action in the way that we think of as action. It's sitting, thinking, dreaming, envisioning, vision casting, contemplating, self-assessing. Even though all of that stuff is done from a chair or a couch or on a walk, if you're a manifesting generator, it's still action. It's still important action, because here's the thing. If you don't create an energetic matrix, and that includes a matrix that holds your lovability, your self-worth, your dreams, your visions, your gifts, and faith that you can have all those things, and the self-worth that allows you to entertain the idea that you could have all those things, if you don't heal your trauma in all those places where you're telling a very tiny story about what you will allow in your life, if you don't do that work internally, quietly, without doing action, if you don't do that work first, you won't create an energetic matrix that's going to support your growth in a sustainable way. And so for all of us who may be sitting in a cycle of, you know, we've gone through the disruption, but now we're sort of sitting with, I don't know what I want. I feel stuck. I feel blocked. You're probably not stuck or blocked. You're probably thinking that there's something you should be doing, and you might be defining the doing as the thing that happens after you do the resting, healing, after you do the clarifying around what it is that you want. So if you go back up again on the featured section of the Quantum Human Design page, or if you look below, we'll post the link to the workbook. You'll see in the workbook, there's this really beautiful systematic way of looking at key areas of your life so that if you are sitting in the void, you have a beginning process to help you start exploring and cataloging all the parts of your life so that you can get more clarity about what do you need and what do you want right now. So I'm going to encourage you to go through the workbook. Certainly if you haven't done pages 1 through 9, start there. Pages 1 through 9 lay out the introduction and some contemplations to get you to explore where you are right now. In the next section of the book, in the next section of the workbook, I'm inviting you to sort of systematically explore what don't you like right now in your life, key area by area, including spirituality, relationships, your body. And then what do you want? What is it that you do want so that you can begin to start looking at what do you need to think about, envision, dream about in order to create that energetic matrix that supports you being ready for when the next season of expansion knocks on your door. So that's what I've got for you today. I hope this gives you some interesting insights. Again, exploration around 2 things. Do I need to rest? Do I need to heal? And what do I want? Because those are the big jobs that the void invites us into exploring. I hope you have a good weekend. We'll be back next Friday at 9 a.m. and we'll be talking about other aspects of transformation. Stay tuned in the Quantum Human Design group. We've got all kinds of great stuff for you next week, including creative exercises from Teresa. We've got Hannah talking about all kinds of exciting things. We've got Transit Tuesday on Tuesday at 9 a.m. Central, looking at the celestial weather for the week. Have a great weekend again. Be well. Thanks, Teresa, for posting all the links. I'll talk to you later.